Hi everyone, this is take two on the video for the spinner, simply because this time I'm going to include the caps to put on the central bearing. The good news is if you've already done the work and drawn the spinner itself, that, that 22 millimeter diameter bearing circle, the hole for the bearing, is pretty much right on the money. I've got one right here and that I just printed up and it's working quite well. So let's get to it. Okay, so we're going to create a document. We're going to call it. I'm going to call it Spinner 2, just because I've got another file here called Spinner, and let it load up the workspace. And I'm going to first of all turn my units, workspace units, into millimeters. Check that off. I'm going to draw on the top plane here. I'm going to hit the P to toggle the plane views out of my way. And the first thing I'm going to do is that 22 millimeter circle for the bearing. Okay, so I'm going to grab my circle tool. I have to choose my sketch plane, of course. I'm going to choose the top plane to sketch on. And I'm going to grab my circle tool and draw a 22 millimeter circle. Okay, so 22 millimeters. There it is. Zoom in a little bit here. So there's a 22 millimeter circle. And then I'm going to draw a 30 millimeter circle around that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw a second circle of, somehow that I toggled it off. I'm going to draw a 30 millimeter circle around that one. Again, zooming in a little bit here. Okay, now we need to set up our geometries so we can do the circular pattern tool. So we're going to go to our line tool. We're going to toggle it to construction. I'm going to draw a 25 millimeter long line. Just click at any length and hit 25. And that will be the radius of our circle. I'm hitting escape to get out of that tool. And that'll serve as the radius of our larger circle. Now let's go put another circle here for our bearing, same as this setup here, the 22 and the 30. So I'm going to do a 22 millimeter circle again. And then concentric to that, I'll draw a 30 millimeter circle. Okay, those numbers are sort of right on top of each other just to make it a little bit neater looking. I'm going to do that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my circular pattern tool. And I'm going to go over here and choose what I want to go into a circular pattern. Right? So you'll notice that it defaults to 3. I could change that if I wanted to a 5. I could, if we change that to a 5, it's going to look different, right? But 3 is the typical sort of symmetry and number of arms that a fidget spinner has. So we'll stick with the 3. That's the inner circle. I'm going to choose the outer one too. And if I left click my mouse, it's going to accept that. But these aren't fixed, so I'm going to fix those using the constraint, the fixed constraint, and I'm going to just click the center of that one and it will fix those 2 circles that we just drew using the circular pattern tool. And we are done drawing with that. Right? So we just draw it, we just finish our sketch. I want to look at the isometric view. Looks about right. And now we are going to extrude it to 10 millimeters. Okay, so you've got to be careful. I like to start at the point that's farthest away from me and work towards myself so I don't miss anything. So I got that one, and then you see you have to hit that little piece too. And then here, working towards myself. That one, and this one here. This one here, and that, and this one here. And I do believe that's it. Let's take a closer look. Yep, that looks pretty good to me. Alrighty. We're getting close. Again, I just want to fill it in these little sharp corners here. And that is I believe that's a It's a 1 or 2. I think I did a 2 millimeter fillet last time. This seemed to work well. Might have been a 3. Let's figure it out. Let's go to the fillet tool, and 5's too big. Let's go to let's try the 2. See what that looks like. A little bit small. I might have gone 3 last time. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. So 3 millimeter fillet on these little on these spaces here. Let's see. Hold on a sec. I am pressing the wrong button. There we go. Orbiting around, getting all these little spaces here, all those little lines. I'm going to fill them in. Orbit around. Let's see. We did 2 out of the 3. There's the third pair. Goes there and there. Okay. So we filled all those spaces in to give it added strength. Let's finish that off. Go back to our isometric view, and let's choose the whole thing and apply a, I think I missed some of it. Let's choose the whole thing and apply another fillet. And this will do, I think probably just a 2 millimeter. We'll try 2 millimeter. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good, right? Maybe I did 1 the other time. This looks a little bit more rounded, but I like that look. That looks pretty good. It's starting to look like a spinner. And that's pretty much it. That's ready to print. I have one printed, and these 22 millimeter diameter holes are just about right. But the only thing we're missing here are the caps, right? We put the bearing in the middle. You don't want to hold the metal bearing. You want to hold onto the caps that stick out. So let's go ahead and look at the top plane. And in fact, let's toggle the top plane on so I can see it. And let's choose it. And you can either right-click and start a new sketch, right? Or you can choose it by clicking on it and then go up here, sketch, and top plane. So I would like to just do a cap. Right? So let's choose the circle tool and put it out here a little bit. And this cap I want to be just bigger than the hole. The hole for the bearing is 22 millimeters. So let's go ahead and make this guy 23 millimeters. So it's just larger than the bearing itself. Right? 23 millimeters. Let's click out of there. Let's choose it. And we will extrude it by 3 millimeters. Let's choose that and extrude it 3 millimeters. All right, finish that off. I just want to take a quick look here. Isometric. Okay, so far so good. Back to my top view. I'm going to choose this face, and I'm going to start a sketch on it. I can also right-click, new sketch. But I'm doing a new sketch on the face of Extrude 2, and the bore diameter of that is to say the hole in the middle of the bearing, is 8 millimeters. If I find the center of that, it'll light up. I just draw an 8 millimeter circle here. Oh, I got close. Look, 8.028. 8 millimeters. An 8 millimeter hole. And since we are finish that off, and since the depth of this entire spinner is 10 millimeters, let's do 2 caps, and let's extrude these 2 pegs to 5 millimeters each. I'm going to do it a little bit bigger because I don't want them to be flush against the face. I'm going to go 5.5 millimeters. I want them to be just off the face. If the 2 posts hit, we'll have a 0.5 millimeter on each side. All right. Okay, there's a little cap. It's kind of squared off. Let's go put an extrusion on. Sorry, not an extrusion. Let's go put a fillet on this thing, a little round right here. Zoom in, and I'm going to go do a 2 millimeter round right here. So I'm going to do a fillet tool right there. I'm going to change that to a 2. And I'm going to go choose what I want. I want that thing. There we go. It's starting to look more like a cap here. Finish that off. And you're pretty much ready to print at that point, but you've only got one cap. So here's a good trick. You don't have to draw that again. Let's just go back to our top view. Let's go back to our top view and watch this. All you have to do is choose, all you have to do is choose part 2. Right? Part 2, if you're on a Chromebook, you can double tap your keypad, or I think hit Alt. I'm going to right click, and you'll see this if you double click or with 2 fingers. I think if you single click with 2 fingers, you'll see this menu, or if you hit the Alt key, click, you'll see this menu. I'm going to copy that part. The transform tool shows up. I'm just going to drag it over here, and there's a copy. I don't want it to be right. I'm thinking about the 3D printer. I want those to be close, but not on top of each other. There. Now I've got 2 caps, which will slide into the bearing. I've got the spinner body, and the caps I have right here. I'm sorry, the bearings I have right here in front of me. I got them in the mail yesterday. So this should be ready to go. Now, how do you send this to me as a 3D printable file? Well, first of all, what I want to see as a submission, I want to see something like this. Right? Here's the drawing file. Here's a drawing file. I want to see something like that. That's for the spinner body. The cap, I don't know. You can do the cap too if you want to. Put it on the next slide. Here's the cap. Right? There's the cap. And what you want to do at this point is you want to go to Part Studio 1, and you want to right-click on it, or again, Alt-click, or I think on a Mac, Command-click, etc., or 2-finger tap right here will do it. Right-click. All of those are the equivalent of right-click, and choose Export. Part Studio 1, Export. Export it as what? Choose STL. Yours is probably going to default to Parasolid the first time. Choose STL. Name it something appropriate so we know what it is, like spinner. I don't know what I have caps lock on. Sorry, spinner and caps or some such. Binary units are in millimeters. Make sure that's in millimeters. My 3D printer is printing in millimeters, so if this is anything else, we're going to get weird results. Medium resolution is fine, and then you can OK, and it will download. Right, it's waiting. Here comes. There's the STL file in my download folder. It's spinner and caps right there, STL, and that's a printable file that I can work with here. So if you want to send this or anything else to me to 3D print, the STL file is what you do. You export as STL. Okay, that's that. Have fun. Talk to you soon.